And joining us now, of course, she is one of the greats, the strikeout queen at UCF softball. Pitched from 2012 to 2015, was the CUSA Pitcher of the Year in 2012, Freshman of the Year in 2012, helped UCF win 2 American Conference championships in 2014 and 15, 3 NCAA tournament appearances, 2 regional finals, 5 no-hitters, school record as well, 78 career wins. I speak of Mackenzie Audas, who, of course, is married now, Mackenzie Packrall, but she joins us now here on In the Circle. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing really well. Thanks. How about you?
Good, good. Now we have you on for a good reason because you've got you just recently decided to open up your own business. You've got your own website. Just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I decided to get into pitching lessons. I've kind of, I guess, dabbled on the side a little bit. I graduated with my degree in education, so I love teaching. Um, and I decided to go away from, I was elementary school, I decided to go away from that and re-enter the world of softball because I missed it. And so I'm really excited. It's called Pitching with Purpose. Um, and I have a website, I have social media presence on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, I can officially be found on the internet.
Welcome, welcome. So take us through the process now that you've got your site. What's your kind of tell the people that they're interested in the information, what they can expect from Pitching with Purpose.
um, I mean, it's really a journey. So it's not like you come in and like we do a month together and everything will be golden. It's definitely a process. I'm here to invest my time and knowledge into the pitchers that really want to learn and take their game to the next level physically and mentally. So, if there wasn't the whole COVID thing happening, I would be going to tournaments. But right now, since I have a new, a 5-month-old, I'm, taking extra precautions. But even just, going to tournaments, investing into my players. And like I said, just really getting them um, to be stronger in especially the mental capacity. I've noticed that a lot of the pitchers that come to me, they just weren't taught how to analyze the game in a way that really does create pitchers instead of throwers, as I like to call it. Throwers are the ones who, just kind of just go through the motions and um, just do what they're told in a sense, and pitchers are the ones that can read batters and think for themselves and make real-time adjustments, and that's what I want from anyone who comes to me.
For those that maybe didn't get to see you pitch, describe your style of pitching there. Because you came to UCF. It's been, we've had you on before. You talked about it. You were overlooked because of your height. And you flourished. And we'll discuss that a little bit even more in detail about the height in pitching and how you can certainly, I don't know if the word is overcome it, but certainly prove people wrong, because there's some people that just don't that like to look at size and things like that, which we'll get into. But just describe your style as far as pitching is concerned.
Well, I, in a sense, overcame my size, and I learned how to through, hard work, but honestly through pitching coach. I had a great pitching coach, Casey Zerby, and she was small herself. So she taught me how to use my body to its full potential, and honestly my mind. So my philosophy, when I was still pitching and how I want to pass it down is, like I said, learn how to read the batters and situation. There are times when you want to throw strikes, but there are also times where you want to, throw balls. And then I'm a huge believer of having a strong changeup. It was my favorite pitch. It was my best pitch. So there's that reason, but I also believe that without a changeup, you're not going to dominate the way that you should. If you see all the girls at a higher level, no matter what their size is, you got to be able to have that command and then throw that changeup to get girls off balance. So that's just like a brief snapshot, but and just really using your body the way that tapping into more than just using your arm and more than just dragging. There's so much into it, and it would take forever to go into everything, but it's the way that I teach. I believe it's successful, not just for girls that are 5'5" or less like me, but girls that are, 6'3". So yeah, it brings out the strengths in everyone.
Uh, how old were you when you threw your first changeup? Do you remember?
I don't actually, but I'm sure I was probably around, I started when I was 8, so I'm sure it was somewhere around 10. I wasn't taught right away, and this is how I teach too. If you come to me between 8 and 10 years old, I'm not going to teach you a changeup right off the bat. I'm going to teach you how to move quick and throw hard, and then command as well, because you gotta get that fastball down first. That's really the base of everything, and that's my belief. Everything is played off the fastball.
Plus, you don't want to go complicate it too soon, right? As you're growing up in the game, sometimes if you try to go too many pitches, that can mess up with your mind a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Because again, the mental side of things, there are definitely girls that are younger that just they um, surprise me in a really awesome way with how mentally strong they are and capable they are. But in general, you want to simplify it. The game, whether you have 6 pitches and you're in college, or I don't know, 8 pitches in college, or you have 1 pitch and you're a 10-year-old, you want to keep the game as simple as possible. And that's why, through our lessons, I also work heavily on those simple mechanics that can seem a little monotonous, but there's a reason why they're called mechanics, and there's a reason why you want to perfect them, because the more you can do that correctly, when you get all that other stuff into the mix, all those other fun pitches that you want to throw, like rise ball, drop ball, it makes it easier to throw them. So that's another philosophy, I guess, as a pitching coach and as a pitcher that I had.
When you're pitching, how much of the game is mental? How much of it is physical?
Okay, timeout. He already woke up.
How much of the game is mental? How much of it is physical? Especially when you're playing there, how much of the percentage would you put it at?
Um, Anywhere between, honestly, I would say it's like 80-20. Um, Especially, and I think it is kind of, it flows, ebbs and flows depending on the day too. Sometimes it's more than that depending on the situation. So it could even be just, game time. And that's why it's so important to develop like how to read hitters, how to deal with situations, how to have that presence, which is one that personally growing up, I struggled with having that presence on the mound until I got in high school, of being having like a poker face and not showing that emotion, and that does affect the players behind you. And as a pitcher, if it's something that you want to do at the highest level, you got to learn to do that. But anyways, so yeah, I think in game time situations between that first and 7th inning, I think it ebbs and flows, and different games. I mean, I remember one of my no hitters, I felt like going into the game, I was like, oh crap, this is going to be an interesting day, because just when I warmed up, it was just one of those days, nothing was felt right and clicked. But when I got into the game, I was able to tap into that mental side of things. And even though I didn't have all my pitches, I mean, it worked out pretty well. So
You mentioned one of the reasons you want to do this is you want to teach the kids to be more of pitchers, not throwers.
mhm.
How much did you see that? Why is it that we see a lot of pitchers coming into college, let's say, and become just and are throwers only? Your teammate Shelby Turnier, we obviously shake and bake combo, even admitted when she got to UCF she was more of a thrower at the beginning. Why do you think that is, and how quickly can you change someone from being a thrower to a pitcher?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that you can switch it pretty easily. And just like, anything, the brain is a muscle. You just have to, that was my baby. you have to, you have to work it out. And it's like anything, creating that habit. So you could change it within a couple months, not to the level that, you can if you've been working on it for years. But it's like I said, it's like anything, you just have to be intentional with it and have, be purposeful with it. And that's also kind of how I got, when I was playing around with name, pitching with purpose. Again, I think that mental side of things is so important, that that name just really stuck out to me, because that's what I want to do. I want to give my pitchers that purpose. Each pitch should be purposeful, whether it's in practice or in the game. And then I'm trying to remember the first part of your question that I went on a tangent on.
Well, I mean, why do you think there's so many pitchers that are
Oh,
throwers
yeah.
coming out and
Um,
not being already pitchers? Why does it
yeah.
it take them sometimes to get to college and then they learn?
Yeah. And sorry, that's what happens when you have a baby crawling around. You get
There you
mom.
go.
But anyways, so I think it's honestly just, unfortunately, it's lack of being taught. I mean, how are you can't, it's not fair to expect a pitcher or a player in general, or just in life in general, someone to do something if they're not taught it first. And so I just think that there's that aspect that's missing, especially, I mean, there's a lot of amazing pitching coaches out there who know the mechanics, but I think there's something to be said about going to a pitching coach who has played at the level you want to be at, and, done it to at least some success, because it does show that they've been able to tap into that pitcher mentality versus just like a thrower. And it was a journey that I continued my whole time. And you mentioned Shelby, we helped each other out with that too. And I think it showed too that we both got stronger as we pushed each other, and to not just be throwers, but to be thinkers of the games and students of the game.
I remember it was 2014. We were at Alabama for a tournament, and it was the day before the tournament started, and it was practice. And I remember there was the bullpen session, and you were running the bullpen session. It was you, Mackenzie Audas, Shelby, I think Jamie Javari was there, but you were kind of leading the way. Like you were kind of like the de facto coach, if you will. I'm sure you remember that, but you always were like that. You always were willing to help out other pitchers, which is not as common necessarily, because it's such a competitive thing. Everybody wants the ball. Everybody wants to be the number one, if you will, and all that. How did that come into you there? And I would assume you've always thought about, have you thought about teaching pitching, for a long time?
Yes, I've always been very analytical. So I absolutely loved, and that's one of the reasons why, Casey Zerby or Clark, the way that she taught her style clicked with me so well, because she, especially with me, maybe because I was so receptive to it, but she broke down the mechanics to where when I went off to college, I was able to feel pretty confident in what I knew, and in a sense be my own pitching coach, and rely on that. So with all that being said, I've loved being able to do that, and I've always had a passion for helping others and teaching, which is why I went into education. And I've also never believed in, that whole saying, like, there's no I in team, but there's an M and an E. Or I don't even know why I said it. There's no I in team. I just, yeah. And it's more fun when you can collaborate and win and not just have to rely on yourself. I've never understood the whole, like, win or lose, it's me. That's not fun. Like, I'd rather, if I'm, I mean, honestly, just being realistic, and I feel like I was pretty realistic. Like, if I'm having a crappy day and they're just hitting me around, then I want someone to come in and back me up, because it's not just me on the field. It's not just me on the line. And I want to instill that in all my pitchers too. And being team players and being able to help the other pitchers out, because again, it just pushes you for you to be stronger. And then for them to not need me. Like I always tell, like I have one girl, she's going to Nova next year. I always tell her, like, my goal is for you to like never have to come back to me. Like I want you to, but like I don't want you to have to. I want you to be able to, you know, be your own pitching coach and, you know, help other girls and be receptive to them helping you as well. Because I also am realistic enough to know that I still need to be a student of the game as a coach.
Well, and I thought that was so important. Your success, team success, especially 14 and 15, was the fact that you and Shelby hit it off and you worked together so well. You were both so opposite, personality wise. And even, I mean, I think you would even agree, even your pitching style is a little bit different. But yet that's kind of what fit both of you. But it was so critical that you both got along. And I thought that set the tone for the chemistry of the team. And that's why you were able to win the 2 American Conference championships, the 50 wins, and you know, and didn't worry about individual stuff or stuff from the outside about who should be pitching or who's the number one. You both clicked and really left a legacy for both of you. It worked out, but that's something you're going to highlight, I guess, with your you know, everybody there, that there's that side of it from a pitching standpoint, that you know it's okay to be kind of that complimentary pitcher, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Shelby helped me too open my eyes to the fact that, like, not like when a pitcher comes to me now, whether they are my size or not, and what pitches they have, like I'm not shaping them to be just another, you know, Mackenzie Audas, because that doesn't make sense. I mean, there's only one me. There's only like the way that I pitch, and the way I, you know, my take back and everything, like going to mechanics, that's not going to feel comfortable and natural for everyone. So I look at a pitcher, unless she's, you know, brand new, then we start from the basics. But if she's coming to me and she has some experience, my goal is to, you know, look at her strengths and enhance them, and then look at her weaknesses and teach her how to make them strengths as well. And sometimes that's changing some things, and there might be a little discomfort for a time. But yeah, it's not just to make little clones of me. It's to, like, if someone came in and was more like a Shelby, who I had better spin overall and she had better command. She was able to hit her spots better than I was, you know, so just being able to take that and you know, teach to, like I said, their strengths, and not just try and do a one size fits all. And I think that that's something that not every pitching coach does. I know, you know, Shelby's a pitching coach up in Chicago, and I know she does a great job with that too. We've talked about our philosophies, and they're very similar, not a surprise by any means. But unfortunately, I think there's a lot of pitching coaches out there who teach one way, and it's not always sometimes it can be a disservice to the girls. So
Height. That's something that I know you and Shelby have talked about, the height. When you have, what do you to tell your students as far as the height's concerned? And you know, because it always gets talked about in softball, the recruits. You went through that process, as we talked about. Just talk about the height in softball, how that's overblown, why, you know, you're never going to change every coach's mind. They're always going to look, but you can certainly still stand out despite of height. So just discuss height and pitching, and what's one of the things that bothers you about it, that people say about it, and what's one of the things that people may not be aware that it could work to your advantage, that you're not the tallest person in the world.
Well, I guess what bothers me about it is that a lot of times the girls like me and Shelby too, and then, you know, a lot of other countless girls that I don't know their names, but I know they're out there who went through the same thing. They're just not given, like you mentioned, the same looks. They're not always looked at by, you know, the SEC schools and, you know, like Arizona's and stuff like that. Most often, and it's a, I guess, a stigma and a cliche, because it is it is true. Like if a 5'5" versus a 6 foot tall girl, most likely the 6 foot tall girl, she's going to be able to have more power and throw harder. But throwing hard, and that's what I teach too, throwing hard is just one component of pitching. So I think that would be something that bothers me, is that there's still that to overcome, in a sense. If you do have the same tools in your tool belt as a girl who is bigger, they're probably going to go with the one that just looks more intimidating. I would be the way to say it.
Sure. But there's, like I said, it could kind of really motivate you though too, right? I mean, that's one of the things too, from the mechanical standpoint. How important is it for mechanics to be aware of your mechanics during a game? Because sometimes you might be off. How quickly is important to catch that? Can you figure it out on your own, or do you talk about that challenge of your mechanics and constantly being on point, and being aware when you're not on, your mechanics are not correct?
Well, that goes for any pitcher that's any size. But yes, I think, and that's part of the whole mental side of thing. And that's why I said that, it ebb and flows throughout innings 1 through 7, every game. Because there might be one inning where everything just clicks and you're on and it just feels natural. And then the next inning you could come out and it's like, where the heck did all my pitches go? And you have to be able to make those real-time adjustments. And the hard thing is, it's not like one size fits all. Like, just because, I flew open with my shoulder personally, that was something that I knew I did, doesn't mean that that's what, the other pitcher does. So that's where it comes into play too, of, the whole pitching with a purpose. Like, if you're not going to pitch with a purpose, then you're not going to know yourself as a pitcher and your body to be able to make those adjustments. And that's, again, part of that goal of mentally, being able to be aware. It's all about being self-aware. And I don't care how old you are, you can teach self-awareness to an 8-year-old. Obviously, they're not going to be as strong at it as someone who's been pitching for longer. But they're still going to know, like, oh, my body was doing this versus what it should be doing, if you practice that with them. So that's really how a pitcher can truly, more than just like one time, as like, in a sense, a happy accident, overcome things that are happening in game time situation. And like I said, that it's whether you're 5'2" or 6'2", you have to be able to do that to be as effective as you want to be.
Demeanor when you're pitching, you were very, I don't know how the word would be, but you were not, you didn't show your emotions when you were playing. Nobody could tell, what you were thinking or what you were feeling like. Nobody knew, you didn't know if you pitched a shutout or if you had a bad outing based on your demeanor. Some pitchers are emotional. Shelby was emotional, things. But Allison Kime, was Hall of Famer in UCF, once told me she wanted to make sure that she had a poker face on when you're pitching. You didn't want to show emotion, or you wanted to show you were in control, no matter what the situation was. How much of that philosophy did you believe in, that you didn't want to show, even if you didn't feel good how things were going, or you didn't want to show that to the hitters and your opponent?
No, I 100% believe in it, and I bought into it, which was why, I worked really hard to, I guess, in a sense, perfect that. Because like we talked about earlier, the other players behind you, they're going to feed off your energy. So, and even the other team is going to feed off your energy. Anyone who's played softball or been a spectator in any sport, like, if you see the people who are getting the ball, if they look like this versus like this, you're going to feed off of that, and you're going to start feeling more confident as the opponent, like you're wearing them down. So no, I 100% buy into that. I think that there are good things about being, like you mentioned, Shelby's a little bit more emotional. I think there's great things about that too. There's strengths and weaknesses in both. But no, I teach that to my pitchers too, that you want to be as much of a, I guess, poker face as possible. Because then, whether you're doing really well and throwing a no-hitter or whether you just gave up a grand slam, you're gonna know how to keep your cool, and you're gonna know how to bounce back from that. Because even if you're throwing a no-hitter, you still got to be on. Because then it's also in your mind to a certain extent, like, I'm throwing a no-hitter. And that puts pressure on you in a whole different way. So you got to be able to deal with both types of pressure, because there's still pressure when you're throwing really well. It's more like you're putting it on yourself. So you got to learn how to keep your cool and deal with both sides of the coin.
Yeah. Now, of course, you almost had over near 1,000 strikeouts in your career, and the changeup was a big weapon for you. You've mentioned that. It's your favorite pitch. Why is the changeup so important? What do you tell your students about the changeup, and why it's so effective against hitters?
Well, it's a change of speed. I mean, that's really the simple point of it. It's not even to throw it as a strike. Heck, a lot of the times that I threw it and they swung it, it wasn't a strike. It was on the ground. So it's a change of speed, and I don't care how fast you throw. If you throw, I don't know, 80 miles an hour, there's going to be some batters that can time it to where they just know to stick their bat out if that's all you're throwing is 80 miles an hour. But if you're throwing hard, have movement and can throw a change of speed in there, then their timing is going to be off. And so to me, it's other than developing your fastball, that's why I teach changeup next, is because it's the most effective pitch. It's going to make all your other pitches more effective. And also it's, when you get confident with it and comfortable with throwing it anytime, it's really fun to throw. So at least in my opinion, that one on, I felt like got at least a little smile out of me.
That's funny. Yeah, any pitch situation there. You mentioned obviously the current times that we're in. Virtual lessons. Just talk about that. Do you do virtual lessons, and the difference, how you'll teach virtual lessons compared to obviously in person, and some of the adjustments that come with that?
Yeah. So virtual lessons, I mean, it's so cool in today's day and age that you can even offer virtual lessons. But they are, it's different than online. To me, an online lesson would be more like there's a forum and you have kind of videos that you can, click through. But a virtual lesson, which is what I offer, is still like one-on-one and private. It's just honestly like what we're doing right now. It's a Zoom or a FaceTime call. And I go about it the exact same way. The only difference is that, I'm on a screen, so I have to ask someone, instead of like my feet moving me to different angles, I have to ask the pitcher, the catcher, the parent to, move me to different angles so that I can see what's happening with the pitcher in different angles. But I still treat it the exact same way. You have your lesson time. I call you on that lesson time and we talk for a bit. You throw and I give you the feedback. So like I said, a virtual lesson is still that one-on-one private lesson. And the cool thing about it too is whether it's a virtual lesson or we can do in-person lessons, I'm always there for my girls. So like if they need to send me a video of them, outside of our actual lesson because something's going on, and just be like, hey, this is what I see happening. Can we work on this in the next lesson? I'm happy to do that too. So it's very continuous.
What's the biggest thing that you notice, either when you're watching a softball game or when you're doing lessons, the biggest thing that has to be corrected, that's the most common thing you see that, I don't know if it bothers you, or it's just one thing that okay, we got to correct that right away, right now, or that you see it in the game, somebody pitching in a game, and you're like, oh boy, what thing? Because I'm assuming as you watch softball now, you're watching it almost as a teaching eye instead of just a fan. You're thinking, as you mentioned, you're analytical. You're watching certain things that maybe the casual fan doesn't look for. What's the one thing that stands out that you've seen most common recently that you're like, oh boy, this is an issue in the sport right now from a pitching standpoint that I need to correct? or help correct?
It, that's a really good question. I would say body weight. But I also don't know if that sticks out in my mind because that was personally something that I always had to focus on too. So it's something that I was used to focusing on myself. So I do always, look for, okay, where is their body position? Is it back, if that makes sense, or is it forward? The way that my philosophy is that the only pitch that it should really be forward on is the drop ball. And that's a philosophy that I know holds true for a lot of pitching coaches, but is it actually, I guess, are there drills that are done a lot? Maybe is it taught in a way that really clicks with the players? Do they know how to even feel that on their own? Because if you can't feel it yourself, then how are you going to fix it? Because it doesn't matter if after the fact someone's like, oh yeah, you were leaning forward on all your pitches. Well, thanks. That doesn't help me now. So anyways, yeah, so I would say body position, and there's a lot that goes into that. But I would say that would probably be number one. But yeah, I would just that's kind of like the short answer. That would be.
Sure. No, that's fair. Are you one that will be involved, because I know Casey helped you out as far as during your process of coming to UCF as your value. Is that something you also will be involved with your students, depending obviously on their age and everything, but as they go through that process, if they're going to college, helping out? Because you were an academic All-American. So you know the ups and downs of being a student athlete, a softball player, from the positive and balancing all that out. Is that something too that you all help out as well as somebody who's done that to a kid that's about to go to college, for example?
Honestly, I will be as involved or as uninvolved as the player desires. I think that's kind of my stance on things. Because if you can lead you can lead a horse to water. So if I feel like it's gonna not be well received, then I want to make sure that I pour my time into someone who really really wants it and who's gonna be receptive to it, I guess.
Sure. What would be the biggest advice if you had one of yours to come to you and say, what's the biggest advice to look for as far as I'm going to college and I'm going to pick whatever, and picking the right school that's right for me in the right situation? What's the biggest advice you would give?
Sorry, he's getting restless.
That's Winston, folks, that is jumped in here. Look at him; he's adorable. He's got his own advice. He's got his own mechanics down pat. But what would be the biggest advice you would give as someone who went through the process that's important to as they go through it, that cannot get lost in this? Because you can get lost in based on the name of the school and things like that. But what's the most important value to have through as you pick the right destination?
You mean pick the destination, meaning like
school? Yeah, right school or the right path for you. Yeah.
I would say priorities. Really, you got to prioritize what you want, because there are some pitchers who want that big name more than anything, and if that's what you want, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I will help you get there. But then there are some girls like me. I cared more about making sure that I had the best opportunity possible to play in every single game. And that was the most important thing to me. So I prioritized that and tried to find a school. My dream was D1. So I tried to find a D1 school that would let me do that. And I didn't care if that meant that, we would be the underdogs and have to overcome a lot in order to get our names on the board. So like I said, my best advice would be to really think about what you want out of the college experience, because don't get caught up in all the flashy lights and all that stuff. You're there for 4 years, and for a lot of people, that's the last 4 years that you'll play softball. Some of us are lucky to go and play pro, and some of us, I chose not to. I chose to not put my name in the draft because I felt like I was in a different season of life. But Anyways, yeah, I would say think about how you want to spend those 4 years, and don't get caught up in other stuff.
And it's got to be your decision, right? And I think that's something that sometimes parents get involved too much in that process. Hey, when you go here or there, when in reality, it's got to be the kid's choice, because it's their choice. They're the ones that are there. And sometimes I've seen this where they go to a certain school because they think it's the right thing to do, but it's not. It really isn't, because next thing you know, they're on the bench and they're not playing and they're not pitching as much as they thought, and then everybody gets frustrated with it. It creates a negative atmosphere there. How important is that as far as the parents' role in all this? Yes, you want to be supportive, but there's a line there, isn't there?
There is, and that's tricky because it can go either way. Like you can have a, oh, no. Okay, buddy. Hold on, sorry. Okay, crisis averted for a second. We almost had a meltdown. It can go either way because, you know, it could be like a player who I was talking about who cares more about like, no, I want to be a part of a team that has always been successful, and, you know, they're recruiting me, and it's okay if I don't play as much. I care more about the team and the experience. And there could be a parent who says, well, no, I want you to play, but that might not be, I want you to make sure that you're going somewhere that you're gonna like for sure start like 100%. And that might not be what the kid wants. And then you might have the flip side of the coin. So yeah, you just have, I think a parent needs to think about who their kid is and their kid's personality and really listen to their kid. Their kid, by the time that their kid's deciding, you know, their kid is a young adult and they have to be able to make decisions for themselves. Obviously, I'm not a parent in that situation yet, so I can't
Got a few years.
Yeah. I can't say how hard that would be to take that step back and let your child make that decision, whether you think it, you know, is a mistake or not. But the only encouraging I have to say for those parents is that there is a lot of players who start off somewhere and then they transfer and they end up happy and successful at where they transfer. So there is that option. Even though no one goes in thinking or wanting to transfer, there's always that in mind, for almost like a peace of mind for parents in the background.
Two quick things there. Obviously, your career, you were just recently the number 5 ranked UCF female athlete of all time at blackandgoldbanneret.com there. You've got numerous records. We've talked about all the accomplishments. As you've reflected on your UCF years, what stands out? How would you describe to somebody your career at UCF?
Fast. I mean, I guess the one regret I have is I feel like I was always looking towards the next thing and not just like enjoying the now. So if I could give any advice to girls that are in college, that would be it. Is just enjoy it. Like, yes, you want to start the season off strong and like thinking about, you know, the World Series and have those goals as a team and a player, but don't forget to enjoy all those other moments.
And it avoids burnout. I mean, you have to have fun with this. If not, otherwise you could risk the burnout. I think that's something parents sometimes lose fact of. You don't want to force it on somebody just because you think that's the right approach to get a scholarship, because they could run burnout and you hate the game all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So all right. So tell the audience where they can find Pitching with Purpose and all the details and what you offer.
So you can find all the details are on the website, even for virtual. It takes you, you know, step by step of what can happen. So it's www.pitchingwithpurpose.com, and it's spelled out. My email is pitchingwpurpose@gmail.com. You can message me through the website. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and both of those are at Pitching with Purpose as well. And then if all those fail for some reason, you can find me through my now married name, Mackenzie Packrall. So there's plenty of ways to find me if you are interested in a in-person lesson, if you are from the Tampa area or want to travel to the Tampa area, because I do have a couple girls who who do travel, or I have a few in who do virtual as well, and I'm always looking to add some more. And virtual is Eastern time because I am in Florida, so that just throwing that out there too.
Well, Mackenzie, this has been
You know.
fun. This is there you go. Get all the information out there, folks. It's fun time there. Mackenzie, congrats on that. We'll be following you there closely, how that goes, and appreciate you taking the time here. And best of luck. We'll do this again.
Yes, hopefully with a little bit happier baby as well. But yeah, no, I appreciate it, and thank you for letting me speak about something that I love.